It's been a little bit, but the Buffalo Sabres are back in action tonight at New Jersey. Puck drop is at 7, pregame at 6, and both will be right here on WGR. And then some good news for the Sabres tonight. Tage Thompson is going to be in the lineup after being in Washington, D.C. last night to celebrate Team USA's gold medal win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is expected to get the start in net, and then Josh Norris also expected to be back in the lineup. He's been out since mid-January. While for the Devils, Jack Hughes is expected also to be in tonight's lineup. He, of course, is part of Team USA's gold medal win. Some other notable action tonight, also at 7, Capitals play host to Philadelphia. 7:30 sees Toronto down in Florida versus Tampa. Austin Matthews will play for Toronto. At 10:30, the Ducks host Anaheim. And then for some AHL action, the Rochester Americans, they are in action tonight, 7 p.m. at Cleveland. And then some big injury news in the Eastern Conference. Sidney Crosby out at least a month for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Over in Indianapolis, day 3 of the NFL Combine. We'll get more on today. Sal Capacio will join the show at 5. And then some news from around the league. Bears linebacker Tremaine Edmonds reportedly has been given permission to seek a trade. And then some scheduling news. The Commanders will be playing a game in London this season at Tottenham Stadium. And the Jaguars, again, are going to have a back-to-back also in London. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones on Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
You know, I gotta wonder what kind of working relationship you'd have with Satan.
It's Mike Schopp.
I've often wondered that. Like he, they, I don't know what his pronouns are, or their pronoun. Anyway, Satan.
And the Bulldog.
What's the upside of doing well?
Well, maybe they're too busy making everyone else's life hell.
Oh, boy.
And
wow.
you might just be able to do your own thing if you're partnered with Satan.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They're too busy, making Scott Norwood miss field goals.
Oh, come on.
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
Well, we made it. Almost 3 long weeks without the hockey team. A hockey team that had somehow managed this winter to recapture our collective imaginations to the point where even before gold medal Olympic Sunday or semifinal Friday, area bars have been experiencing an uptick in customers on game nights. The fan base has been awakened, and I don't know, hopefully a 3-week almost pause on the schedule has not done anything to dull the senses and keep you from being ready to fire on the hockey team, because we got them back, and it is going to be hot and heavy for the next 50 days. I believe there are 25 games left, and I believe there are 50 days left in the season. So 25 into 50, there's a game every other day, basically. Like, not literally, but like that's going to be the pace they're on here. So any amount of 3 games in 4 nights, 4 out of 6, or you go on, extrapolate from there. Just know that basically they're going to average a game every other day for the next month and a half or so is where we're at as the Sabres get back to it tonight with Tage Thompson back with the team and in the lineup in New Jersey to face Jack Hughes, who's also expected to be in the lineup for the New Jersey Devils. I am the Bulldog, by the way. Good to have you along here on a what day is it? What did you just do in there? What did you do in there? Listen, I want to apologize to everyone right now. I didn't realize it as that open was playing and I started talking that Zach had done the thing that often completely derails people and makes them look at their radios while they're driving or look at YouTube while they're watching and go, wait, what day is it? Is it Wednesday or not?
This is disastrous.
Where was the hump day open? This only happened one other time that I remember, and I swear to you, it was also a day where Mike was out. I don't know if it was you or maybe your predecessor or one of your predecessors. Because we had a few different people in the chair. Yeah. Zach Jones, as our regular producer, has been for, how long has it been now?
Well, I think we're going on almost 3 years
now.
Yeah.
So, but in between like Sneaky Joe leaving and you getting the job, I think we had, like, you were a part of the mix, but there were
We're doing a juggling act a
two,
little
three
bit, yeah.
guys that maybe sat in the chair and tried it. But there was a Wednesday, one day, somewhere in there. It does not happen often. There are very few things on this show, in this business, you can count on as regularly as the Wednesday Hump Day Open, and Zach just missed it. So don't adjust your sets that it's still Wednesday.
The vibes are real low now.
I really had to ask.
The vibes are real low
I thought
now.
maybe you did that with a purpose.
No, Dan's leaving, and I was like, hey, man, at least it's Thursday. The week's almost over. This is disastrous.
Wow.
This is bad.
You really thought it was Thursday.
This is bad, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's tough. Yeah. See, that's I don't have to be too hard on you. That's going to be a hard mistake for me to accept because
I know, yeah.
we have been pointing towards when do the Sabres come back? Wednesday the 25th. Wednesday the 25th. Wednesday the 25th. Like I had a 20-day break ingrained in my brain. The last game was the 5th of February. The next one is Wednesday the 25th. Wednesday the 25th. And you blew it.
This is bad. I mean, the boss is still in the building. I can just go hand him my key fob now. I probably should.
I don't know. With Mike not here, I need you today.
One last hurrah.
Don't. Yeah, right. I mean, after that, maybe just get me to Sabres pregame.
I got you.
And we'll be okay. Anyway, Mike is out sick today. Zach Jones is here, even though he clearly does not know what day it is, and our humblest of apologies if we've thrown you off at all. Okay, I'm done addressing that now. So we've got a hockey game. We've got the hockey team. We've got 25 games to go, and so there's plenty, I think, to sink our teeth into on that front, and we'll see where we go. Talking about the team and their return here tonight against New Jersey. They then go to Florida for 2 games, Florida and Tampa. I think Florida is on Friday, Tampa's on Saturday, before they return home on next Tuesday, to play the Las Vegas Golden Knights and Jack Eichel. So we'll see what kind of ceremony, what kind of presentation the Devils do, and other teams around the league who've got American players who won gold, and even players who didn't win medals, I think, will get acknowledged by their teams. But maybe that's more of like a TV timeout sort of thing. Whereas I think when you've got guys who've won gold, you do something before the game. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. And then I'll expect teams that don't host games until next week, like the Sabres, to sort of follow suit when they have Olympic heroes to welcome home. So there will be that. We have plenty of football coming in the 4 o'clock hour, maybe not until 4:30. That's when Chris Trapasso, our longtime friend and contributor, will join us from Indianapolis. And then we'll have back-to-back there because we'll have Sal at 5, also from Indianapolis, site of the NFL Scouting Combine. And then at 6 o'clock, it'll be time for Sabres pregame. So we got a football sandwich show here. We want to start with hockey, and of course, we'll end with hockey as pregame and Paul Hamilton. And you'll hear from Tage Thompson, you'll hear from Lindy Ruff, and also Rasmus Dahlin once we get to it. I guess I'm curious. I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask, and I don't know what this will lead to, but I guess I'm just kind of curious if you're of the mind more to be talking about the hockey team or about hats. And I'm not trying to be cute. Like I feel the emotion. I've got a lot of friends that are not feeling great. I've got other friends that are feeling great, and I'm just sort of here, on my side, and you're on your side. If you, I'm assuming, have a side. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're neutral. But the hats, the whole thing that's happened since the game ended, and the phone call in the locker room, and the comments from the president, and just all of it. There are lots of photos of Tage Thompson enjoying this, as he well should. And in one of them, he is wearing the classic red hat. That's what I mean by you want to talk about the hockey team or the hat. I am not here to criticize Tage Thompson for wearing the hat. I would tell you, as someone who is of the left, I wish he were on my team instead of the other team, but that's the way life goes. He's got every right to be on the team he's on, just like anybody else that's on that team, just like anybody else that's listening to me talk right now, and just like me. So, am I angry? Am I upset? No, in part because I'm not surprised. There's nothing surprising about the way things have gone, the wave of patriotism, if that's what this is, that rolled through when the Team USA won on Sunday. That's what happens. So they're invited, they go. To me, the most disappointing aspect of this, and again, this is also not a surprise to me, but the most disappointing part of the whole thing was the phone call to me in the locker room making fun of the women. Yeah, I have to invite the women, said the president, or I'll be impeached. And the players that were there seemed to all be laughing. I should all be laughing. I mean, the video I saw, just lots of backslapping, and that's the good old boy thing. But what is he really saying when he says, I have to invite the women or I'll be impeached? He's downgrading what they did, and he's also sort of like winking at you because he knows what the women team represents. The women's team represents really, it's almost in direct opposition to much of what this administration's policies are. There are lesbians on the U.S. women's hockey team. They are not a group that is going to, while they're wrapped in the flag and feeling extremely patriotic and proud of winning Olympic gold over Canada, just like the men did, they are part of the fabric of our nation, the society that we live in, that is being marginalized. So, of course, they weren't going to go to the White House, but he's got to make the joke and everybody's got to laugh at it. And I mean, it's really, it almost feels like you're circling all the way back to the ground floor of what's offensive about this man being president. For me, so like, that's my view. That's how I look at it that way. And I think I'd like to see the highest office in our country move past a point where you're disparaging the accomplishment of the women and taking the opportunity to make jokes about them. And it's just like any other time in our history where the white men in the room are all laughing and cackling about, the silly women. And I mean, it's 2026. It's just a lousy place to be left. I guess, within the construct of this emotional tournament, rooting for your team, if you were rooting for Team USA, but yet are politically not aligned with the president, you might be feeling marginalized. And I get that. I understand that. I'm going to have to try to just sort of steer clear of, turning this into some sort of production that just, is off the rails, yelling about the left and the right, and there's no in between, and like who's got the right to whatever. Everyone has the right to believe and profess whatever they feel. That's America, right? So don't bother me with why did everybody have to make this political? Because if any one of those men's hockey players had stepped out and said something about how they didn't appreciate the president's joke about the women's team, and they are embarrassed to be a part of a scene where that is funny, is still in 2026, the right would be absolutely attacking that player. Now, no one was dumb enough, I'm going to use that phrasing, to do it, and maybe that's because none of them feel that way. I suppose that is possible, and again, they're free to do that and believe that, and that's where they want to stand, that's what they want to believe, that's what they want to represent, that's their choice. But don't act like if anyone had, we just got done with the Olympics. Any United States athlete that criticized this administration and its policies got attacked. And look, that's the way it goes. Just like these players now, some of them, I guess, I'm not here to attack anyone. I hope that's clear. But they're getting criticized for representing and standing with something that many in the country don't agree with. Like that's the world we live in. There's no mystery to that to me. So being mad about it to me is just nothing but a waste of time. It more than anything, makes me sad that we're still in a place where it's cool to make fun of women that way and anyone else that's in the crosshairs, marginalized members of our communities. This whole presidency, second time over, has seemingly been about steamrolling those people. And that's very contrary to the way I live my life and my beliefs. So, anyway, I just if you got something to say about the hat, I want you to feel free to express yourself. I've expressed myself. That's where I stand on it. And there's a hockey game tonight. I hope that I can manage to have some hockey conversation. I think I can, because we do still all love the sport. Sunday should have shown us that, like nothing else. I mean, I know that there's a lot of casuals that come roaring through the door when you have an event like that, a gold medal game between the U.S. and Canada. A lot of people that don't really pay attention to hockey are going to climb on board. So there's been a lot of passengers. But I would think watching that, the drama that it was, the excitement that it was, seeing Thompson be a part of an American team that did bring home gold for the first time in 46 years, has got this fan base, the Buffalo Sabres fan base, which is who I'm hoping to talk to today, energized for the restart of the season. That is exactly what I think should be happening right now. And hopefully in a day or two we get into some games. We're not going to be dwelling on, hats and whatnot. Again, look, I don't mean to minimize it either. I don't want to sound like it's convenient for me to just leave it over there. It's just not been functionally practical for us as a show to regularly talk about these things, because I feel like I'd be ostracizing some part of our audience. And I genuinely, sincerely do not want to do that. I do, just like anyone. I like to be heard. I like you to know what I stand for when it really is important and when it's, has to be talked about. But mostly we've spent, the last 3, 4, 5 years not dipping our toes at all into those waters. And I said this on Monday, and that has been with intent. Because I think, and this is not, I hope this doesn't come off as any sort of excuse making or like, oh, well, you're not someone who's feeling the brunt of this administration, so you can avoid it. Well, I have a job, and the job is to talk about the Bills and the Sabres on the radio. And I want to avoid pushing as many of you away as I can. Regardless of whether we see eye to eye at all on politics, because we don't trade in politics. It's not that important to me. I mean, I spent many years not at the highest levels of hockey culture. Right? I got to like the second tier junior league in the United States was my experience. There's no mystery to me, having been around that world, that there's a lot of support for the right within hockey. So that's why I let off saying it'd be, I think, disingenuous for me to be mad, because I'm not surprised. That was right in your face the whole time, Owen and I were on the ride he was on. So, we managed to make friends with people who I'm sure don't agree with politically, and managed to maintain those friendships, and I still do. So anyway, that's my spiel. That's about the best I can do, I think, on that. On the hockey team, I did pose a question on Twitter. I haven't had a chance to really look yet to see what sort of replies I've gotten. But I'm wondering now, 25 games to go, hot stretch run needed, to some extent. The Sabres have a little bit of a buffer. They go into play tonight, if you've forgotten, 5 points clear in the first wild card spot. Columbus and I believe it's Washington are the nearest pursuers on that. Yeah, Washington and Columbus both have 65 points. Okay, and so they're 5 points clear. They've got a little bit of room, right? They're also squarely in a position where they can be competing for second or third in the division, which is really where my focus is. They are 2 points behind both Montreal and Detroit, who hold down second and third. Montreal has it on, I don't even know if it's regulation. No, that's not it. They played fewer games and they have the same amount of points. That's it. So anyway, Montreal's played the same number of games as Buffalo. Detroit's played one more, so Buffalo has a game in hand on the Red Wings. That 2-3 is where I want the Sabres. That's the goal to me, because Tampa, I'm pretty sure they're 8 points ahead of the Sabres. The Sabres still will play them 3 times. That's important to keep in mind. So I guess, they could, if they get on a tear like they were on before it kind of petered out at the end, right before this Olympic break, they maybe could run down Tampa, because Tampa's been red hot as well at the same time that the Sabres have been. But I'm willing to sort of kiss Tampa goodbye and let them go run off top. Second and third, though, is where you want to be, because that is a playoff matchup. If it's Montreal, Detroit, Buffalo, and Boston is right there too with 69 points, then there's quite a drop to Ottawa, 7 points behind Buffalo, Toronto 7 points behind Buffalo, and Florida 9 points behind Buffalo going into play tonight. So I guess right now, Montreal, Detroit, Buffalo, and Boston are 4 teams that realistically should be vying for spots 2 and 3, if not, again, the top spot. And that avoids playing a top seed, right? You're either going to get a division winner if you're one of the wild cards. That means Carolina, no thanks, or Tampa, I would also say no thanks. So the 2-3 spot, whoever it ends up being, along with you, whether you're the home team or the away team there, get me to second or third. I'll take a first-round playoff matchup. I mean, of course, right? It's been 14 seasons. We'd all take any first-round playoff matchup. But if you want to, think about what's ideal, I'll take a first-round matchup against Montreal, Detroit, or Boston, or really any of those other teams that are down there if they were to get hot and work their way into one of those spots. But that, to me, is your best shot of winning a round, not just getting in and going, okay, it's like, the Bills at Jaguars at the end of the 2017 season. The drought's over. We made it. We came. We saw. We lost a feeble, weak-ass-looking game. A first-round playoff series in the NHL playoffs that kind of goes that way would still be welcomed, but it's less likely if you can avoid Tampa or Carolina. So get me a matchup with, again, Montreal, Detroit, Boston, or anybody else that's behind me, and I think I'm live. So there's that to keep in mind. And also, this is what I posed on Twitter that I still haven't spit out. Like, who is the most important guy on this team moving through these final 25 games? Like, who do they absolutely need to have perform for them? And look, there's lots that you could. I know I got some goaltending responses, whether that's Lyon or Luukkonen. We expect Luukkonen to be in goal tonight in New Jersey. That's a fine spot. You can look at Tage Thompson to continue playing like he had been playing leading up to the Olympics and during the Olympics. The top 4 defensemen, I don't want to take them for granted, but I feel like I expect them to continue playing at the level they've been playing at all year. They have been, to me, I've said it this way, it's their superpower. So far this year, those 4 dudes back there really make it go. But I feel like I've got a good base there, and I don't expect a big drop-off there. Josh Norris is my answer to the question that I pose, because that is a guy that, to me, when he's in the lineup, is absolutely a difference maker. Like, I think if he's the caliber of player that I think if he were healthy all year long, we'd be talking about whether he's as good or better than Thompson. He is a dynamic 200-foot player. He's a great skater. He's a very good puck handler and skillful passer, and he is also a scorer, and he's a very good defender. I mean, he's just an excellent 200-foot player. This is the speech I gave when the Sabres acquired him last year. Why do I settle on him? Because counting on him is maybe the riskiest proposition there is with this hockey team for this next month and a half, because he has only played 19 games this year. He's had terrible luck with injuries, and that's his entire story. That's why Ottawa, on their way to a playoff berth last year at the trade deadline, felt like even though he's a better player than Dylan Cousins, they needed to trade him to get Dylan Cousins, someone who was going to perform nowhere near the level Josh Norris is capable of performing, but he's going to be in the lineup. We can count on him. I'm sure the conversations in Ottawa leading up to the trade deadline were, of course, Josh Norris is the better hockey player, but can we count on him? You know, what if we get through this playoff race and it's, the game 81 and there's a back problem or a shoulder problem or a whatever problem? There's a pretty long list with this guy. And the Sabres, I don't suggest by saying it that way that the Sabres are going to do the same thing Ottawa did last year. I think they're probably going to cross their fingers and hope that Josh Norris can stay in the lineup for them. And I think if he does, I think this team has a great shot at getting second or third place. I think if he plays a couple of games and goes out again, I think they managed to get by without him. But the guts of that win streak was with him in the lineup. They are 13-6. In games he has played this year. That's not, Benson maybe has a more dramatic, in the lineup, out of the lineup, and Benson is a very important player too. But man, I feel like down the middle of the ice, get me Josh Norris all day long. Like, that's my answer. I think that's the big variable for this team, because I think if he plays 25 games and gives you close to 25 points, I think this team will make the playoffs. But if he goes out again, I don't know what kind of return you could ever anticipate for Yuri Kulik at this point. Their depth at center could really be tested. So that's my answer to that. We'll take your calls on that and hats if you got them. 803-0550 is the number. I am 716 area code, Rochester, 716-803-0550. Mike is out today. We'll get right to calls after a quick timeout here. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
We've been living in sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. Yeah. It's time to all choose your timeline. life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. To all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster.
Got to feel the high of a team that really was playing well and doing well, and then now the two best teams in the world are playing, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't at all easy. I mean, there was a big part of that game where, Canada, pretty well dominated, but there's times you can take momentum in the game. There's times where you got to wait for your opportunity. I looked at that first 40 minutes. I thought Tage had two of the better chances to score in the game, just by being in the right position. But there wasn't much when it comes to end-to-end and handling the puck, and it was more of, once you got it down low, try to create an in-tight opportunity, and both teams were doing a pretty good job of packing it inside.
Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff speaking this morning in advance of, well, I assume that was from this morning. It could have been from a date, before they traveled. Anyway, we'll hear a new version of Lindy Ruff saying things, some of them probably about Tage Thompson's Olympic experience, although it's a little shorter, from this morning. Later on, we get to pregame. Anyway, there's Lindy talking about his experience watching Tage Thompson perform for Team USA in the gold medal game on Sunday morning against Canada. The Sabres and Devils meet tonight, starting up a stretch run that features 25 games, and the Sabres looking with a 5-point lead on a playoff spot. They are 5 points clear of their nearest pursuant, looking to end a 14-season playoff drought. That is where we're at as the NHL season gets back to business tonight. 8 games tonight in the league, so not a super heavy schedule, but 8 games, and the Sabres at Devils, one of them. 716-803-0550 is the phone number. Mike is out today. I am the Bulldog. Happy to have you along with us today. And we'll get to some football in the 4 o'clock hour. As I mentioned at the top, Chris Trapasso, our longtime friend, NFL prospect and player analyst. And then Sal Capacio will join me at 5. Chris at 4:30, Sal at 5. Jeff is first up this segment. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
How you doing?
I'm great.
So I want to talk about just how excited I am with those both gold medal victories that the men's and women's teams got. I got a younger daughter. She's been watching her older brothers play sports for years, and she's probably the most athletic. And she went crazy when that goal went in. I'm so excited where it's going to take her. She was shooting shots in the garage. She plays basketball. She plays flag football. I think the fact that she got to see the look on the girls' faces when they were celebrating on that ice and what it took, the grit it took, it brought her to start thinking about what she's going to do when she gets on these fields.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I think sports, when kids are that age, are supposed to work. You know, you'll have plenty of time eventually for people telling you it's not realistic. Your kid, your son or daughter, in your case daughter, isn't good enough to make it to the highest levels and whatever. But when there's a sweet spot for them to feel like they can chase it, and they want to pour themselves into it, and wherever they hit their head on the ceiling, so be it. I think that's exactly what is supposed to happen when something captures the imagination, the way back-to-back Olympic gold medals by the women on Friday and then the men on Sunday will do. That is a byproduct of it. Mike Tirico gave an excellent speech about this at the conclusion of the gold medal game on Sunday on NBC, and it's been repeated, I'm sure, millions of times, if not more, on social media. That's how it should be. You know, that's how your daughter should feel watching those women. Let her go and take her best shot. And I mean, I love that about sports. It's absolutely one of my favorite things about the Olympics, frankly. Thank you for the call. Ed is next up. Hi, Ed. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. Really nice to talk to you.
Same here.
I appreciate very much you bringing up the topic of Red Hat. I know that it's not a topic that you guys usually want to talk about and steer clear of, and rightfully so, understandably so. So I thought I would give my own thoughts and opinion on it before I knew that the Tage was going to go yesterday. I kind of was frantically Googling to see, is my guy going? Is he going to go? And I didn't get the info. So anyway, when I saw a picture of him, just my own personal reaction was I kind of felt just gutted. And I'm not mad at him. Like you said, I'm not mad. I hope he scores tonight. I hope the Sabres win. But I just felt deeply disappointed. And again, that's just my own personal opinion. And I'm sure that there's a lot of listeners out there who are thinking, get a life, buddy. But that's just the way it is. Things are a little bit divisive now. And I talked about it with my girlfriend and we kicked it around, and she made some good points saying Tage is very young. He's a super young guy. He's probably got a little bit of a bubble that he's in. He's played hockey his whole life. He's excellent at hockey, one of the best players in the world. He's got a lot of money. So he probably doesn't think about a lot of those things. But at the same time, and again, just my opinion, I think you phrased it well when you said that there's a lot of marginalized people right now that kind of get, pushed around a little bit. And I think that, him being young isn't an excuse for him, because I think you're on your phone a lot. I think you can have a general idea of what things that are going on in general.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a political junkie, and you don't have to, whatever. But But so for me, I was just disappointed because I don't, and I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know Tage Thompson. Like I said, I'm going to root for him. It just
all right, Ed.
felt unfortunate. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Appreciate the call. I'm going to move on, but I appreciate you calling. Tage is 28. I mean, I'm not, and I don't know him either, and I don't know what he thinks of repercussions, if there are any. Like, I don't know. Does that mean there's a couple of questions about it? That'll be addressed. I think he talked today about how proud he is to have been a part of the team. And he certainly, as I said, I think you'll hear him say this later, has a right to stand on whatever side of the aisle he wants to stand on. But I don't think anyone should be naive enough to not realize what it represents. And what it may represent to your fans, which is, in a certain way, that is how it should be. Like, if Tage Thompson chooses to wear the hat, I assume he believes in the policies, in the platforms. Maybe not all of them. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to sit down over a cup of herbal tea with him and run down, note by note, different things that I might find problematic, that he might and also might find problematic. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. But he's a grown man. He's a 28-year-old man. I don't accept at all like he's young and maybe naive and doesn't realize what it might represent. I think that's silly. If you want to be on that side, then be on that side. Just be prepared for some of your fans. Just like, I'm talking now, I'm being honest, open book. I hope that there aren't people out there going, oh, dude, I don't want to hear this from you, and therefore I'm never coming back, or I'm done, I'm out. I mean, I'm trying to be respectful about it. I'm trying not to, sink to some ridiculous vitriolic level about all this. But I don't think, like, Ed is struggling to understand how maybe any person could innocently be swept up in something like that. And I don't know. I would have a hard time with that. I think these people know. Part of the reason I'm not surprised is I pay attention. I'm a hockey fan. The Florida Panthers have been to the White House. The last time they went, they all wore matching ties to the president. Like that's where they're at. This was a part of Four Nations. The GM Bill Guerin put the president on speakerphone in that room. Like that, and again, my experience within like the outer reaches of hockey culture, there's nothing about any of that is surprising. So that doesn't mean it shouldn't be upsetting. And if you are upset about it, I respect that. But I'm not going to either try to make excuses for the guy that's on our team. Like he's going to stand where he stands, and that's his right. I'm not going to attack him over it, but I'm also not going to try to defend him unknowingly as being just innocent or naive at 28 years of age. I mean that I don't know. I'm struggling with that from Ed. So anyway, thank you for the phone calls so far on that. We'll continue the conversation. We'll see if we get more steered towards Josh Norris. I did get some Twitter feedback that agrees with me that he is the variable here. Really, I think him healthy is like, I think they could still make it if he were to not play another game. But I feel like their opportunity to get a second or a third place finish in the division and even make some noise, should they do that in the actual NHL playoffs, I think they need him. To me, he is, even though he won't be, I doubt, their number one center, he is that caliber of player. So that's a guy that I think can really be a swing player here for the Sabres. That's my I started here, talking about the fallout from the Team USA visit to Washington, D.C. yesterday, and also who's the most important, like what's the most important factor in these final 25 games for the Sabres? And I settled on Josh Norris as my answer. So we'll hopefully pick up on that when we get back after a quick timeout. I am the Bulldog, 803-0550 in the 716 area code, Rochester. We hear you. We see you. We know you're out there. Please come on in under the big top. We'd love to have you. Mike is out sick today, along with Zach Jones. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR. Folks, Bulldog here reminding you that the ride for Roswell baseball for you here. We because of our new affiliation with stations outside of the local market, because we have a network now. All right, we're on in Rochester. Anyway, we have to be very strict about our out time at the top of the hour to allow stations along the radio network to know that we're going to break on time and they can do whatever they're going to do at the top of the hour on time. So we got to adhere to the clock a little more tightly. For the first few days of this, our out time at the top of the hour was 54:40, which for me, I went, no problem. I'll never forget that. I love the band 54:40 from Canada. And that you'll never have to tell me. Well, you'll have to remind me that it's almost 54:40 because I'll forget. I'll be in here talking, and I'm sitting in a part of the room where I am not staring at the clock. I have to turn my head here. Everyone watching on the YouTube and is Twitch still a thing? Are we still doing that? Okay? Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube or the Twitch, you see me turning. There's the clock. So I got to do that. So that was going to be a challenge, but I was never going to forget the time, but they changed it today. And as far as I know, you tell me if there's a band out there called 54:45, maybe that will help me commit it to memory. Maybe just doing this exercise right now, really burdening you with this absolutely benign information, is how I will remember it. I'm just trying to facilitate not getting in trouble with the boss. Is really all I'm after here. Anyway, let's see. Like I said, it was a little inside baseball talk for you here. Let's go back to the phones. Mike is first up this segment. Hi, Mike. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks.
Hey, I just want to talk about Norris. I 100% agree that guy is an absolute stud when he's healthy, and they're going to need him down the road. But another player I wanted to talk about is Bowen Byram and obviously Darlene. This team has really done a lot on defense this year as far as bringing it into the offensive zone and scoring and using their defense to score. And they're going to need to keep doing that. And I think Byram's the kind of guy that can really add to that. Mm-hmm. And, Samuelson's been good. I don't know how sustainable he is, but I think Byram definitely is. And I'm looking forward to seeing him keep going the way he has been.
All right, Mike, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. We're aligned on Norris, so I won't elaborate on that. I like leaning on Byram and really any of the defensemen as the thing they're going to need. As I laid out my thoughts on this subject during the opening segment of the show, I said I'm sort of I guess I should have worded it differently. Like what's something that you're not expecting, because I expect Dahlin and Samuelson and Byram and Power to continue to be the engine that drives this team. They have absolutely been that really all year. But as the winning started happening and this team climbed in the standings, that those four, it just became very evident that those four were the thing. And I don't think anything changes that. But, barring an injury, of course. This is always the case in any sport. I'm sort of taking them for granted sounds really lazy. I'm just expecting, and I think they've earned this level of expectation. I'm expecting them to be great. Or at least very good to great. And Norris, to me, is just more of a wild card. It's more of a variable because he's been out of the lineup more than he's been in it. And if he's in it, I think they have a chance to do more than just squeeze in. All right, we'll hit up a timeout. We'll keep going on the phone calls. 803-0550 is the number if you want to talk about the Sabres. I am here for you. Chris Trapasso at 4:30 from Indy here on WGR.
Finish line as the NHL season gets back underway today after about a 3-week break, and the Buffalo Sabres are one of those teams that get the ball rolling here. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6 as they are in New Jersey to take on the Devils. All of this going to be right here on WGR. Some good news for the Sabres tonight. Tage Thompson back in the lineup after being in Washington, D.C. last night, celebrating Team USA's gold medal win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is set to get the start in net, and Josh Norris will be back in the lineup for the first time since being out since mid-January. Zach Benson, though, and Jordan Greenway have been placed on IR, while for the Devils, Jack Hughes expected to be in tonight's lineup as well. Some other notable action in the NHL. Also at 7, the Capitals play host to Philadelphia. 7:30 sees Toronto down in Florida versus Tampa. Austin Matthews will be playing for the Maple Leafs. At 10:30, the Ducks host Edmonton, and then some AHL action as the Rochester Americans are in Cleveland at 7 p.m. And then some big news in the Eastern Conference. Sidney Crosby out at least a month for the Penguins. Over to Indianapolis, day 3 of the NFL Combine. We'll get more on today. Sal Capacio joins the show in just about an hour at 5. But some news around the league. Bears linebacker Tremaine Edmunds has reportedly been given permission to seek a trade. And then some scheduling news. The Commanders are going to be playing a game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next season. And the Jaguars are going to have a back-to-back in London. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones on Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Schopp and the Bulldog.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
Monday, Tuesday, hump day is halfway.
It's Mike Schopp.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
And the Bulldog.
Hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on. I know you can hear me.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
On WGR.
Hump day!
Sports Radio 550.
Look at this guy. Look at this Zach Jones over here trying to make up for the earlier gaffe. Now, you know what you've done now is not as egregious as people in our audience not knowing what day it is. Now they're not going to know what the hell time it is.
Oh, the clocks are all screwed up
because
now.
It's wait, did I miss daylight savings? Is it 3:00 on? What's happening?
That one I feel much better about.
Yeah.
That one actually warms my heart a little bit.
Yeah. We're almost there.
We are almost there. That's why I feel good about that.
Baby.
Give you a little hope.
Anyway, good to have you along with me here on a Wednesday, as the Open indicated, but it is the 4:00 hour. If you weren't with us to start, Zach thought it was Thursday at 3:00 and played the one of the normal other dopey opens that we have like a dozen or so of, and it's a big deal. The only other time I remember that happening on a Wednesday, people were like, "Yeah, I think they're just kidding mostly," but like for a moment, I wasn't sure what day it was. Because it is a compliment, which is why I pointed out, because people who listen that regularly that would be thrown off by 3:00. What is played at 3:00 to open our show are you are the fabric of the show. You're there through thick and thin. You're the regulars. Some of you may even be in the bullpen. Hi bullpen. Nice to see you again. Anyway, Sabres back to it tonight. 25 games to go. Going to be a hell of a stretch run here. They are 5 points clear of a playoff spot going in tonight. In other words, I mean 5 points safe from the nearest pursuance to the wild card spots. The Sabres currently hold down the top wild card spot. Lay all this out again quickly. They're only 2 points back of second or third in the division, Montreal and Detroit respectively, holding those spots down. So that's where I begin this 25-game sprint to the finish, is thinking about those spots. I'm not thinking about just hanging on and making sure I can stave off Columbus or Washington or anybody else that's out there realistically lurking. Ottawa and Toronto are 7 points back. That's 2 points more than Columbus and Washington, who are 5 back. I think realistically, everyone else out there is cooked. And I even don't feel great. I don't know why you would about Ottawa and Toronto, considering the way the teams at the top have been playing. But maybe that changes. Maybe that changes for the Sabres. Maybe that changes for Tampa or Montreal or Detroit or Boston. Teams that at various times through the holidays, through January especially, were just red hot. It's a good thing the Sabres had the hot stretch that they did, because they'd be down with Toronto and Ottawa if they hadn't. So they're 5 points clear. What is the thing? Is there a player on the team currently that you feel like is the biggest variable to them making it, or even, dare I say, I mean, Alex Tuck said it before the break, and I know they lost 3 of 4 after he said it. So, anyway, we're here to win the Stanley Cup. So I think second or third is realistic. I don't think they have it in them to track down Tampa. I think that would take another run of, 25 games like they just finished, even with the 3 out of 4 that they lost at the tail end of it. And that's too much for me to expect. Right. So, but I don't think being just 2 points behind with a game in hand on Detroit, by the way, Montreal and Buffalo play the same number of games going into the return to play tonight. I think it's perfectly realistic to think that this team could be good enough to finish in second or third place. And that is what the goal is. And I'm wondering what you think the biggest variable to that is on the current roster. There's the trade deadline to talk about, and we will certainly get to that eventually. In fact, I know Mike is going to be off this coming Monday, March 2nd, and the deadline is like a week after that, or even midweek. What is the date of the deadline? Zach, do you happen to know? Is it the 6th or the 9th? I have the 9th in my head.
It is the 6th.
The 6th, okay. So anyway, we're closing in on that. But that's a whole other conversation. Right now is presently constituted. I don't assume they won't make a buyer type move at the deadline to try to supplement what they have already. But as currently constructed, who's the biggest variable on this roster? In other words, someone who could have a really positive impact if he can stay healthy. There, I gave it away. There's your clue. It's Josh Norris for me. Of course, the goaltending. The goaltending's been solid enough all year. I expect the goaltending, because of this team's overall defensive play, to be pretty much what it's been so far this year. And that has been Lyon and Luukkonen really when needed. Ellis has done well enough, certainly. But Lyon and Luukkonen is expected to get the start tonight after suffering an injury before the break, and he wasn't even healthy enough to go play in the Olympics for Finland, but he's back in tonight to get things rolling here in these final 25 games. I'm assuming a certain baseline level of goaltending, again, because of the team's overall defensive play. I feel, and I get some feedback in the first hour, and you can get in with that right here at 716-803-0550 if you are so inclined. Somebody mentioned Byram and Dahlin, and again, to me, those are guys that, while I think it would be dangerous to just take them for granted, I think what they've done all year to this point, provided they all stay healthy or relatively healthy enough to stay in the lineup, I am going to get them driving. They're the drivers to me. Those top four, Power and Byram, Samuelson and Dahlin, I've used the phrasing, it's the Sabres superpower. It is the best thing about that team is those four dudes. We get to the trade deadline conversation, supplementing them so they don't have to play 23, 24 minutes a night would be really good. Maybe you get some help in that way from return from injury eventually, but that seems a little ways off. I think the deadline's going to come before they really get anyone back. I know Kesselring, I think, is going to be back. And I just hope he can stay healthy. This has been really a lost year for him. So I think, supplementing what they've got there is an idea. Not that anyone's going to displace those top four. They, to me, are also a given. Josh Norris, to me, is the variable. And to me, it's a pretty easy answer. Again, you might worry about Luukkonen or Lyon. And I'm not telling you they're made in the shade there. I just think they've been a certain level of good all year. And if they're in the lineup, I think I'm going to continue to get a certain level of good. Norris, to me, is an excellent player, an absolute difference maker when he is in the lineup. The problem is him staying in the lineup. Like, you just cannot stay in the lineup. And so having him, and he is back. He is off of IR. The Sabres have moved a couple of players, Greenway and Benson, I think in the last hour or so, to IR because they've activated Luukkonen, who will start tonight, we expect, and Josh Norris, who's going to be in the lineup. It's not a huge sample. It's only 19 games. That's all Norris has played this year. But the sweet spot of him being in the lineup, save for the opening night 4-0 loss to the New York Rangers when he exited late in the game with an injury that would then keep him out for many months. He's played 19 games, and it's right in the sweet spot of the hot streak. They are 13-6 in those 19 games. That's not incredibly lopsided, but it's a hearty, good record. And this is a player that I still think we have barely ever really talked about. Because, it's another reason I like him for my answer to this question. Like, who's the biggest variable right now for the Sabres in this stretch run? Because he got here at the trade deadline of the 14th lost season in a row. There was no, when he gets here, maybe we can get hot and make the playoffs. The Sabres were buried. They were DOA when Josh Norris got. They're not doing anything last year. He gets here, played 3 games, got hurt. So off season comes and goes. He's in the lineup to start the season and can't even get out of game 1, and he's hurt again. And he came back. He got hurt again, and is now healthy. Right? He got cross-checked. It was one of those games in Florida, I think. He left. And so the timing and his return to the lineup in late winter there, or late winter. We're in late winter now, idiot. Early winter. Norris's return. They weren't really hot yet, and we were barely talking about the Sabres because the Bills were in the playoffs, and we were just extremely preoccupied with the Bills, and the light hadn't really gone on yet for the Sabres. Like, as a subject to talk about, honestly, and expect people to engage in it. We're living through a time period where it became very evident to the people that sit in rooms like this one hosting radio shows that talking about the Sabres in a meaningful sports way was a tune-out. Like, all there really was to do was complain about them and be mad about them, and that by the time, even before the end of last season, this happened to me, it started to feel like performance art if you could still actually get emotionally invested and upset about them. Because it had just become so a part of the experience that they were going to be terrible that you couldn't even really get mad anymore. Like, it's more like a non-entity is what it became. And that did not change until that hot streak they got on here. And that vaulted them in, up the standings as high as, I think, at one point, second place in the division. They have since regressed a little and are holding down the top wildcard spot. But as I said to start the segment, only 2 points out of second or third in the division, held down by Montreal and Detroit, respectively. But they needed that to get us talking. And so a part of that was us not really, hey, look, Josh Norris is back, and boy, he made some really great plays. Those things might have gotten mentioned in a little more inside baseball for you, in the short segments near the top of the hour. Hey, did you see the Sabres game last night? Yeah, Norris made a couple nice plays. Yeah, boy, I sure hope they can keep it up. Okay, back to talking about, Josh Allen and the Bills and the playoffs. Like those are our lives in here. So as a subject, I don't feel like we've talked about Josh Norris for 20 minutes since he got traded here. I'm sure we did a little more than that. But I was on the air trade deadline day last year by myself, and I know I talked about him for more than 20 minutes then. But you get the point. It's not a guy that we have really gotten to know yet and appreciate what he is when he's in the lineup, because it's not even been 20 games this year. But 13-6, is the record in the 19 games he's played this year. He's an excellent 200-foot player. And really, to me, if Thompson continues to play center, that's your top line. But Norris is just as capable. In fact, the year started with him holding down the top line spot, and Thompson was on a wing to begin the year. But I'm just going a long way to say, Norris to me is my easy answer for variable heading into these final 25 games, because I think he's got a skill set that is top shelf. He's a fantastic skater. He's a very good passer and puck handler. He's got an excellent shot. He's a finisher. I mean, he's everything. And he's a good defensive player. He's a good on the draw. Excuse me, sorry about that. That just snuck up on me and I couldn't hit the button. So that's a player to me. If he can stay in your lineup for these 25 games, I'd be stunned if the Sabres didn't make it. That's the kind of impact I think he can have. If everything else that I'm assuming, isn't a variable, isn't, right? The goaltending doesn't fall apart. Something doesn't happen to the top 4D. They do supplement the defense core with a move at some point or another, and hopefully, get some more quality minutes out of a third pair, because if there is, a weakness here, I think on this team this year, it has been, sort of trying to shelter that third pair, while those big guys up top sort of handle all of the heavy minutes. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I'm really, really thinking about Norris for that. 803-0550 in the 716 area code is where we are at. Paul is first up this segment. Hi, Paul. Thank you for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Good afternoon. Bulldog, don't ever change. I thought, even if I may not agree with everything you said, I thought you were eloquent and well-spoken to open. I would like to talk about a defenseman for the Devils, Dougie Hamilton, who, a great career, 32 years old, right-handed shot, playing about 20 minutes for him this year. To me, the Devils should be sellers. They might not like swallowing that as sellers because they shouldn't have been to start the season, but with Jack Hughes missing 21 games for him this year, they're kind of too far out of it. I think a Dougie Hamilton, who we could probably trade, not even a prospect, a couple picks for, could come here, play maybe 17 minutes a night, and just be a great add to us, a great add to the locker room leadership group, and just a great veteran to add for a playoff run. And I would also agree with you totally. Josh Norris is the X factor. He's our forward addition. To me, he is at his healthiest game. He's a hair's breadth lower than Jack Eichel. He's got the hands like Eichel. He can skate like him. He's not as big and physically gifted as Jack is. Jack has dominant physical gifts, but Norris is just slightly below him at his peak. So I'm in total agreement with you there, and great show so far.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul, and I appreciate the kind words regarding some of the subject matter of today's show. Hamilton has been an elite offensive producer for a lot of his career. That has mostly fallen off a cliff here, which is one of the reasons why he's kind of a spare part in New Jersey. I would tell you the biggest problem I would have, in a non-salary cap world where I don't have to worry about the, 27 to 20, 2 more seasons after this one of contract remaining. at $9 million, I'd say sure. If I can take that, take that contract off your hands, New Jersey, and I don't have to pay you as much for the player, that's maybe a guy I'd really like in a third pair role here, because I don't think he's up to being what he's been, which has been a top pair guy most of his career. But $9 million for 2 more years for that? I mean, I just cannot do that. The Sabres do not have, despite their flailing around for 14 seasons, they do not have a bottomless pit of money on the salary cap to spend. So acquiring a player who at this point would be certainly, I would still say in a broken down is going to sound so bad, but he's not what he once was. Even in now I'm going to say dilapidated. Jeez, I'm really doing a terrible job. I can't think of the word I want. Diminished. How's that? That's way more complimentary than broken down or dilapidated. Okay, Dougie Hamilton in a diminished state, playing on my third pair, like in a very narrow window. Yeah, that works. $9 million next year and the year after? I just cannot, will not, should not all the knots, garlic knots. No, just throw all the knots in. You cannot do that. So, fit wise, yeah, I could get there, but it's just not realistic at all. I'm more inclined to go shopping for someone who, and I haven't even noticed, I know what he's getting paid this year. I'm not sure how long his contract runs, but I don't really care because that's only $3 million. If Tyler Myers has a contract that runs through 27, 28, and again, I could find out, but I managed to find Dougie Hamilton's information while hosting the show alone. I don't trust myself to go find Tyler Myers' information and keep the show on the tracks, but I did look earlier today. He's making $3 million this year. And if that were to continue, like if he's under contract for another year or two, yeah, okay, no problem. Really, no big deal. That's modest. I can live with that. And I think style-wise, while he has never been the level, I mean, Dougie Hamilton has been a top-shelf player in the league. He's not anymore. Myers has never been that. He won the Calder, and then mostly, it's been, he never really lived up to the Calder Trophy billing is kind of what Myers' career became. But he's been in the league all this time, and he still moves pretty well and moves the puck pretty well and is a giant. And if I'm going to play him 16 minutes, 17 minutes a night on my third pair, I'm here for that. I really am. And anybody that sort of fits that bill, they don't all have to be former Sabres. There's a lot of chatter about Rasmus Ristolainen being moved at the trade deadline, and many Sabres fans, I imagine, are in like a crash position, fearing that. I like the Myers idea much more. And financially, it does not come with the difficulty that Dougie Hamilton would. So, and unlike football, the contracts are, unless New Jersey were to just and Hamilton would have to agree to this, just get out of it, make him avoid the contract so he can go sign with another team, and then you can do something much more modest than $9 million a year. That's a non-starter for me. Would like the fit, but the money just is not ever going to work. Thank you for the calls. Appreciate it very much. Ideas on variables for the Sabres. We'll get back to that at points here within, but as we get near the bottom of the hour break here, we'll shift gears to some football. We've got a couple of guests in a row lined up from Indianapolis. Chris Trapasso, one of our favorites, we'll begin doing weekly hits with him in a few weeks from now. He's actually going to be in here. Brad and Tim Graham, and for a few days there, it was my son with Brad because Tim was sick. But Brad and Tim Graham are closing out their 2 weeks at the end of this week. The next 2-week window opens, and our friend Nate Geary, who you often hear filling in for Mike, when he's on vacation or out sick. And also you hear him on the Bills Radio Network, both pre- and post-game coverage. Nate is going to be co-hosting with Chris Trapasso, which I'm very excited about for Chris because I just think his football knowledge is excellent. It's one of the reasons why he's a regular with us. So we'll visit with Chris from Indianapolis coming up here in just a few minutes. And then after that, it'll be Sal Capacio at 5. We'll get back into hockey as we ease back toward 6 p.m. when the pregame show will hit the airwaves. You'll hear from Tage Thompson, Lindy Ruff, Rasmus Dahlin, and our Paul Hamilton along the way once we get to 6 o'clock. All right, so that's the lay of the land moving forward here. Do stay tuned. Mike is away today along with Zach Jones. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
It's been a little while since it's been Sabres game night. Tonight, though, that gets back to action. They are at New Jersey. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, and both are going to be right here on WGR. Some good news heading into tonight for the Sabres. Tage Thompson is going to be in the lineup after being in Washington, D.C. last night, celebrating Team USA's gold medal win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen set to get the start in net, and Josh Norris will be back in the lineup as well after being out since mid-January. Zach Benson and Jordan Greenway, however, have been placed on IR. And then for the Devils tonight, Jack Hughes is expected to be in tonight's lineup. The big news injury, though, wise for the NHL, Sidney Crosby is going to be out at least a month for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He picked up that injury in the Olympics for Team Canada. And then over in Indianapolis, day 3 of the NFL Combine. We'll get more on today. Sal Capacio joined the show in just about a half hour at 5. And then some notes around the NFL. Bears linebacker Tremaine Edmonds reportedly has been given permission to seek a trade. And then some schedule news. The Commanders going to be playing a game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this year. And the Jaguars will have a back-to-back in London this season. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones on Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
I'm very big on watering your grass. I'm not moved by any type of materialistic thing. I want to look back 20 years and be proud of what I left at Buffalo, and I know that I did all I could to do so. And that's something I can go to sleep at night and have peace with rather than chasing any external validation.
That is University at Buffalo linebacker Red Murdoch speaking from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, where we're headed in a moment here to hook up with our buddy Chris Trapasso, who is in Indianapolis covering the Scouting Combine. Murdoch is the first Bulls player, easy on the pipeline from UB to the Bills. We've had it a few times. It's borne fruit, but I don't need to rush it. Murdoch is the first UB Bulls prospect to be at the Combine since when, Zach?
2021. This is even with guys like Sean Dolak being an All-American,
right.
Joe Andreessen, of course, too.
It was kind of a big deal that Dolak didn't get invited last year. I remember people being kind of bent about that.
A little bit.
So, all right, good job there. Let's bring Chris Trapasso in from Indianapolis. And I guess because we're there, we just heard from Murdoch. I just mentioned it's the first time in 5 years a UB product has been a part of the Combine. What sort of prospect is this Red Murdoch, Chris? And good afternoon, by the way. And Chris has disappeared and dropped off because, that's how that goes sometimes. We'll get him back and line that up and get rolling with Chris. Just a little technical snafu there. Cool to see the program represented that way. I did not keep great tabs on how Dolak's year went. I mean, I know he went to the Rams as a street free agent and was kind of a story during the preseason, but I don't feel like there was a lot of impact there, but still cool. We know, obviously, Andreessen. It's been a little bit of a linebacker factory they've had going there, at least as far as guys going from, the MAC into the NFL. We've got Chris back now with us. We got disconnected. I was asking you about Red Murdoch. I don't know if you're ready to fire on Red Murdoch, UB linebacker, Chris. Let's try him on a different line. Maybe I don't know what's going on there. Did we lose the ability to have the hotline operational? We'll see if we can't get. We'll try one more time, and then this is going to be back to hockey calls. Is how I'm going to do it. Things I want to cover with Chris. Obviously, he's in Indianapolis and I assume was there for Brandon Beane and Joe Brady talking yesterday. How, by the way, challenging is it to not just say Sean McDermott when you're mentioning the GM and the coach? I don't think I've made the mistake yet, but it does sort of warning signs flash. But I know, talking about the roster defensively, especially, has been pretty interesting so far, and there was some info on that yesterday. I mean, Brandon Beane took a question about Taron Johnson perhaps switching from slot corner to safety, and the importance of the slot corner in new D coordinator Jim Leonard's system is something that has been talked about, and whether or not Johnson can move back and play from the back end of the defense as opposed to from really the front end of the defense. I heard Joe Marino, who's a weekly visitor from Lockdown Bills and a few other different podcasts. But Joe does a great job year-round and is a regular with our morning show guys on Wednesdays. And I heard him today talking about just his concern about Johnson overall, whether he were going to continue to play slot corner or moving him around the board, so to speak. And Joe's not sounding super optimistic from what I heard about their ability to have that transition take place. So I'm curious what anyone else may think about that, and anyone else as we try. This is it. I'm going to click the button. Should I click the button, or are you clicking the button? You're going to click the button. You click the button. Let's see if we've got Chris Trapasso live from Indianapolis. Chris, hello. Are our phones working? I guess that's going to be that then. That's how it goes sometimes. I hope Sal's not going to be on the phone, or anyone else for that matter. Everything was working fine. What did we do? Did I press something? I don't know that I can do. All right, that's how that goes. So no Chris. We apologize for that. I was really looking forward to picking his brain here about what he's seeing and hearing and what kind of clues there might be that are being offered as we get into the combine. The workouts still have not begun. Player interviews, as you heard Red Murdoch talking there. Player interviews have been going on for a couple of days. So, and teams are talking to players. There probably is someone out there keeping track of who has had an official 15-minute visit with the Bills. Like, that is probably out there. I don't have that list compiled myself, sitting here right now at 4:38 in the afternoon. But that is what a lot of the combine is about, is the meetings and, the Bills are meeting with the running backs. Ooh, I mean, I don't think they're in the running back market, but sometimes they just sort of like to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And so just how many players the Bills are going to need on the defense, considering what they have in free agency and that they may actually want to just let leave. I guess Matt Milano would be someone I might consider for that, although I guess on a different contract extension, maybe that's someone you can keep around. But Taron Johnson is someone who's come up big cap number, and if his play is slipping, which I think there is some evidence that it was during the season that just passed, and he's not like a featured player anymore because, McDermott ran a system that really, and this year that started to change a little, or maybe a lot. And I wonder if it was more a philosophically driven decision, or was it performance-based? Did they feel like they weren't getting what they were used to getting out of Taron Johnson in the role and had to pivot to playing more with three linebackers on the field? Either way, I think Johnson is a very interesting piece to think about. That's why my ears kind of really perked up when I heard yesterday that Brandon Beane had been asked about Johnson potentially moving to safety to pair maybe with Cole Bishop, see if that's something. And Beane did not rule it out, but having sort of thought on it, slept on it, and see the whole context of the question that was asked and Beane's response, it feels more to me like I think Taron Johnson might be someone you just move on from at this point. I'm just not sure that that's a player anymore that I should expect, A, to be able to make a position switch and have that be a success, and B, pull down the salary he's pulling down if he's not going to be on the field for 80%, 90% of the snaps like he mostly was for the majority of his career. And again, that started to change as last season wore on. You saw, more and more them rolling with linebackers instead of having a nickel corner on the field. And I think with Jim Leonard as the D coordinator, I think that puts everything up in the air. So that's a spot that I'm definitely going to be thinking about as this offseason gets rolling here and we get into this draft process. Like, can the Bills, they have mostly, they've been very modest about, I think, I shouldn't say that. A second-round pick is a real investment. That's a big asset, and that's what they used on Cole Bishop. But free agent-wise, they've gone to get guys that are just sort of, they're just guys in the league. Mike Edwards is someone who I would qualify as that. DeMar Hamlin, to me, inspirational, great story, but is he a meter-moving player? Absolutely not. And anyone else that they've run through here that had a shot at it just hasn't really taken hold. Taylor Rapp was the only guy, and they targeted him in free agency, but even that was, not like, oh my God, the Bills got Taylor Rapp. It's kind of like, okay, it's a relatively modest signing. And I think the reason I'm thinking about a replacement is I want them to move on from Rapp. I think there is some money to be saved there, and that's not a player that I really, really loved, at least in McDermott's system. I mean, I know they liked him, and they liked his style and his fit. I don't know. I've not really read or heard a lot about what kind of fit he is in Jim Leonard's system, but I'm thinking about someone else there, and I'm wondering if that's a free agent play, like a more significant free agent play than Taylor Rapp has been, or if that's a high pick and you think you have a plug-and-play opportunity there. It's really interesting because as much as we obsess about receiver here, I think unlike last year or the year where they picked Kyer Elam with their first-round pick, there's not a glaring need at corner anymore. I mean, I'm not saying they won't pick one at some point, but I think you can make a case that receiver, edge, safety, in any order you want, I think you can make a case that any one of those three is the highest priority. You might even want to include linebacker in the conversation because of, again, a new system and Jim Leonard coming in. Any one of those spots, I feel like we're going to have an opportunity to talk about as realistic targets for the Bills come the draft. I just think that there are needs and or holes in each of those spots. I mean, you call this show any day between now and April when the draft comes, and ask me or Mike or anyone who's in here, Brad or Trapasso when he's here, who's the Bills' number one edge rusher? And I mean, we're gonna default. Our default setting is gonna be, well, it's Gregory Rousseau. Like, he's the holdover. He's got the substantial contract. Like, he's your number one guy. But to me, that's not a guy that is real. He's good player, nice player. Made some impactful plays this year. But he is not. If he's your number one edge rusher, you don't have a number one edge rusher, I think is how I would say it. If he's at the top of your pecking order, you need to find someone or a few someones to supplement what you've got, because I think you need faster wins. You need more impactful plays. You just need more trouble blocking him than he provides. Again, he's not a player I'm looking to divest myself of, but you could easily tell me the Bills should target an edge rusher in the first round. And I would say the same for safety, and I would absolutely say the same for wide receiver. Linebacker is a little like running back, I feel like, that I might not want to use my first pick on that, but if like the best inside linebacker in the draft somehow falls to number 26, then I think you're going to want to be talking about it. Because there are needs, really, like impactful playing opportunity, starter level needs at all those spots, which is wild for a team that is, still thought of as a team in a Super Bowl contending window. They've got a lot of work to do. there. All right. We apologize for the mess and the uncomfortable listen while we were trying to figure out if we could get our phones to work with Chris Trapasso. So my apologies on that. Sal Capacio at the top of the hour, hopefully not on a phone. We'll get that from Indianapolis, so we'll get our fill of that at the top of the hour. Mike is out today along with Zach Jones. I'm the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR. Cool having you hanging with us today. G's here, handling the bullpen and the great quality video streaming on the Twitch and YouTube. So shout out G. Zach Jones and myself. I'm the Bulldog. Mike is out sick today. So missing out on the restart of the hockey season. Someone else who's missing out on the restart of the hockey season is Sidney Crosby. There was word, I guess Saturday into Sunday morning. No, by Sunday morning, I mean, the game was at 8 o'clock. Sunday morning, we all knew, I think a few hours before game time, he wasn't going to play. But on Saturday night, there was 70% chance he's going to play. And, obviously that was just a facade because he's going to be out 4 weeks. Which, calls into question any realistic chance he would have had to play in a game on Sunday. I mean, I guess he could have strapped it up and maybe taken a few shifts or something, but him being an impactful player in the game was never going to happen. If he's got a knee injury that's bad enough that he's going to miss now the next 4 weeks, tough for the Penguins. That is the, I think, most significant injury from the Olympic break here because he's been a great player, obviously, with Pittsburgh, and they're in a playoff spot right now. All right, we got to go. We'll get out of the way. Sal coming up right after this on WGR.
Sabres are back in action after almost 3 weeks off due to the Olympics, and they get underway at New Jersey. Puck drop at 7, pregame in just about an hour at 6, and both going to be right here on WGR. Some good news for the Sabres tonight. Tage Thompson will be in the lineup after being in Washington, D.C. last night, celebrating Team USA's gold medal win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen set to get the start in net, and Josh Norris is going to be back in the lineup after being out since mid-January. Though some bad news, Zach Benson and Jordan Greenway have both been placed on IR. While for the Devils, Jack Hughes, who scores the game-winning goal for Team USA, is expected to be in tonight's lineup again for New Jersey. Some other notable action in the NHL, also at 7, the Capitals play host to Philadelphia. 7:30, Toronto down in Florida versus Tampa. Austin Matthews is expected to be in the lineup for Toronto. And at 10:30 to round out your night, the Ducks, they host the Edmonton Oilers. And then some AHL action. The Rochester Americans are also in action tonight. 7 p.m. puck drop for them at Cleveland. But some big injury news in the NHL, specifically for the Eastern Conference. Sidney Crosby is set to be out at least a month for the Pittsburgh Penguins after picking up that injury in the Olympics representing Team Canada. And then over in Indianapolis, day 3 of the NFL Combine. We'll get more on that today. Sal Capacio set to join the show next, so do stay tuned for that. And then some scheduling news in the NFL. The Commanders going to be playing a game in London this season at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And then for the second year in a row, the Jaguars are going to have a back-to-back also in London. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones. I'm Western New York's voice of the fan, WGR.
True story, last March, my family took an extended family trip to Puerto Rico. My wife and I went ahead of time. This came up yesterday when Mike and I were talking about year 0. My wife and I had a couple of days in Puerto Rico alone before her family and our kids all joined us for a week-long trip. So the first night we're there, it was great. I mean, perfect fly in, perfect. Pick up rent. No, we didn't get a car. We just took an Uber from the airport to the hotel because we didn't have a car yet. We picked up a car for the weekend or for the week later on. Anyway, so Uber to the hotel. Hotel's great. It's right on the beach. I mean, it's just we can see and hear the beach from our room. Big roaring waves. I mean, it's just awesome, right? And day 0, like let's go see what the bar's like, and maybe we'll grab something to eat. There's a menu, appetizers. There it is, the beef carpaccio. I'm like, I should do this. Oh, anchovy aioli or something. So there was an anchovy element. That's going to be a no for me, dog. I had to put that off, but I did get around to having some carpaccio in the fall. I think I mentioned it to Sal then, but I don't know if I ever mentioned this Puerto Rico part to you. Not that you really care, whatever. You're in Indianapolis. You're probably going out to eat at places that have the beef carpaccio, though.
I haven't seen it on the menu yet, but I'm sure there are plenty of places here. Not the places I've gone to, but there's some really good menus there at these places. I am also not an anchovies guy, though. No, I don't do anchovies. My stepdad does anchovies, and I don't do anchovies, and I don't know how anybody can, to be honest.
Yeah, that was always the tough one. I put a lot of hard years in at the pizza place, and that pie would smell up the whole oven. I mean, it was just just really tough. That's right. Man. I am whatever. Everybody likes what they like, right? But tough one. Anyway, good afternoon, Sal. How's day? What is this, day 3 for you in Indianapolis now?
Yeah, it is. It's good. I mean, yesterday, very hectic, but in a good way with Bean and Brady, and we got them twice, right, at the podium, and then they come back and do the one-on-ones with TV and the scrums with the radio, and we get a lot of there. And I wrote at WGR550.com today about the 5 takeaways I had from Brandon Bean and Joe Brady. So people want to check that out because, when you're in the moment there and you're listening, you got to go back and re-listen to everything, right? What did they say? And try to figure out some things. So I went back, re-listened, and put that together. Today was a much different kind of hectic. Today there's no Bills stuff, but a lot of prospects are talking, and I didn't necessarily go and listen to all the prospects. That's not really what I'm here for to do in this particular, time period for the Buffalo Bills. But today was me about networking and getting with people and talking with people about Jim Leonard. I was able to talk with friends in Denver about Jim Leonard and John Fox coming over. And actually, I mistakenly thought I was on at 4 o'clock with you today. I misread your text.
You could have been,
which
it turned out.
Yeah, I guess so. Which is fine. Actually, turned out well because I was in the media workroom. And I hooked up with Zach, and I said, hey, and he goes, wait, aren't you on at 5? I said, oh, yeah, okay, I'll be on at 5. Well, then I looked over, and our buddy John Ledyard was sitting there. And I said, hey, John, do you have a few minutes? And he's just good. He's just really good.
We had him on last week or the week before, John. Yeah.
Yeah, so he told me, he goes, I was on with Schopp with the Bulldog earlier this week. I said, did they ask you the same questions as I just did? He said, no, we covered a lot of different stuff, so it's great. So anyway, I'll have that when I come back on Friday. I'll be hosting Extra Point Show, and I'll play that because he was really good. And we touched on, really, he knows a lot about, what the Bills might look like on defense with Jim Leonard and the safety class and the wide receiver class and linebacker class. So that was good. Overall, though, a lot of stuff done today. I tell you, it's long days, though, Bulldog. I show up on the ground floor every day between maybe like 8, 9 o'clock, and I literally it's 5:06. I walked into my hotel room at 4:58. Like that's my day was on the ground floor of the combine all day.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like the days. Any traveling radio job like this. That when we'd go to the Super Bowl, that's what those days were like. You get at the media center early in the day, even though your show doesn't start until 3 o'clock. Our time in Buffalo, whatever. And it's like I got to talk to this person. Maybe I can get this person. Oh, Brian Urlacher is selling deodorant. Okay. Sure, we'll talk to him. just churning out content. I don't think we called it content back then. All right, well, on the piece
Can I also just say this?
Sure,
one of the cool things for me is that I've been coming long enough, and I've been in this business now long enough where it's cool that I get asked to go on to a lot of these places, right? Like people come to me, hey, can you come and talk about the Bills? And because the Bills are relevant too, but that's cool. So I catch up with my guy from Houston, John Harris. They had me on their radio show. But another one was this week I did Kansas City because they're building the stadium. And they're like, hey, we got this PSL stuff coming up. Like, can you tell us what it was like? So, like, a lot of the stuff like that winds up happening, too.
Right. Well, that's where you having been on the Pat McAfee show the number of times you have helps you because people recognize you now.
Sure.
I'm not being cute. Like, that's real. Like, so
I have to tell you.
These radio guys are sitting around, like, with producers or just the hosts themselves. Hey, isn't that's Sal? That's the Buffalo guy, right? Let's go get him on our show.
I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will tell you, Pat's show is actually at Lucas Oil this week, which is right next door to the convention center. Mm-hmm. So Mark Caboli, he is their Pittsburgh Steelers guy, and he's on their show a lot. And Mark and I saw each other, so we took a picture, and I texted it to Pat, and I said, hey, Mark and I are hanging out. Just wanted to say hi. And Pat said, why don't you come to the studio? Come over here. But I was told that, like, it's very tough right now to get to Lucas Oil until the players start arriving. So I texted one of their producers, and I'm like, I don't know if I can. He goes, well, actually, we're booked. And he invited me to come on Friday, but I'm going to be back in Buffalo by Friday.
That's
so
a bummer.
I would have walked over and gone on their show, physically over here, which would have been cool. But that's okay. Just cool that you brought that up because they're here and they actually offered, which would have been cool.
Right. So I wanted to – we're talking with Sal Capacio. He's in Indianapolis, NFL Scouting Combine going on, player interviews and whatnot. Workouts begin tomorrow. I want to circle back. You mentioned this piece that you posted, looking back. So speaking of circling back, your second conversation with both Bean and Joe Brady and different things that may have stood out. I know we talked yesterday about their news conferences, but I don't know that we talked to you about the second time around. Anyway, what stood out to you 24 hours later after sort of reviewing the tape?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that there are some looming decisions, right? And we all know that, but Brandon Bean acknowledged that they're going to have to do something with Dawson Knox's contract. Now, whether that is outright moving on from Knox, I don't think they want to do that. I think they'd like to work something out. Is that a pay cut? Well, as Brandon Bean joked, if everybody offered a pay cut to go to the minimum, that'd be great. But you want to show respect to players and people too. So my guess is they're going to Dawson Knox and saying, would you take a pay cut? And Dawson Knox may say, I don't want to do that. And that's his right. They could also try to restructure. Now, I don't know how it would go over with Bills fans. I wouldn't mind if they said, let's add another year to your deal, and then we can spread out some money. I think Dawson Knox can play for a couple more years. He's been a very solid player for this team, but being acknowledged that something has to be done there. But he also said, hey, we have time. We think about it a lot of times in terms of, boy, it's coming up fast. They got to do this stuff before March 11th. Like, they'll take all of that time. And Bean's like, yeah, there's no rush. We got a couple weeks here. We got to figure it out. But that's one. And then, we talked about Taron Johnson yesterday a little bit as well. But there are looming decisions on this roster. Knox stands out to me to be one big one coming up here.
Yeah, I think, Knox, we've talked a little bit about this already, but it is good to hear being acknowledged the obvious that, that cap hit is around $17 million. Just that, that cannot stand. It's one of those, it's a year in the contract that you don't expect to ever really get to, right? You're going to do something about it before it comes up, unless he outperformed it or something, which is, he'd have to be one of the best tight ends in the league, which he's not that. But he is a nice player and a useful player, and he's at a position, Sal, where I don't think they can afford to say, be tempted by what they could save if they just outright moved on from him because of the state of the position. Kincaid and Bean talked about this too. We got to get him to where he can be healthier and not on as much of a pitch count. I'm paraphrasing now. You can stop me if I'm being too liberal with it. But I, as a fan, as an observer, can't divest myself of Knox because I'm not sure I can count on Kincaid. Like, to what extent can I count on Kincaid? And so I think Knox has to have a role, because otherwise I'm replacing Knox, and that's going to cost me maybe as much money as it's going to cost to restructure Knox. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm gaining anything. Plus, I've got the familiarity, the relationship he's got with the team and Josh Allen already. They know who he is. They know what he's all about. And sure, is he Travis Kelce? Absolutely not. But he is a dude and I think can count on, and has been he plays all the time. Mostly, right? He's maybe the opposite of Kincaid. So I don't think I need to open up a hole in an offseason where I've already got a lot of holes. So I think that's the smart way to play it.
I like your financial point here. Let me put it this way to people, because you said it right. If you were to move on from Dawson Knox, you'd save over 9, but you'd take a dead cap hit of 7. You're probably going to have to replace him. So the 7 still counts in your roster for him not being on it. Then what are you going to sign a guy to, 4 or 5? Why don't you just keep Dawson Knox then, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just it adds up anyway. So you take the 7 he's counting plus whatever you sign the new guy. I mean, you're not to $17 million. I get it, right? You are saving some money, but you have a player here and you trust. So no doubt about it. The other thing that I don't think we talked much about yesterday, but I thought I really should kind of revisit this again. It's the Keon Coleman stuff, and you go back to when Joe Brady said the best thing that happened to Keon Coleman is me becoming his head coach. And I'm not telling you Joe Brady doesn't believe that he can get the best out of Keon Coleman. But I also think listening to him, listening to Brandon Beane after the initial stuff with Keon Coleman and Terry, it just feels like they're doing everything they can to make sure they keep his value up and make sure they keep his confidence up. I still think, if you would have asked me, I was asked today by somebody, what's the chances he's on the roster? I said, if you would have asked me this 2 months ago, I'd say 25%. I'm more towards 50-50 now, but I'm certainly not like much higher than that at this point.
Yeah, I respect that. I'm not against them keeping this player on the roster. Mike and I talked about this some around your visit yesterday with us, Sal. And the way I put it, I think this is definitely what I think. I'm not sure exactly how I said it yesterday, but if they want him to be here, great. You just better not be counting on him. Like, you better put people in front of him that if he can perform, equally or even like beat them out, great. But you're just going to have to make it hard for him to claim, he's on the field to start like game, week 1 of the regular season. And he's playing like he was at the beginning of this year, like 80% or 70% of the snaps. You better have a better plan than that.
Agreed. And I just wonder what that looks like anyway. If he's sure, okay, in practice, could you have Keon Coleman as your number 4 wide receiver? Sure, he's on the 3rd year of a rookie deal. It's not overly expensive, and you just say, okay, well, that's fine. I just don't think that sits right. I don't think it looks right or feels right. And here's part of the reason for me is We just did this exercise last year of why is Keon Coleman, the first pick of the second round, your highest drafted player that year, not getting on the field that much? Why is he the number 4 or 5 wide receiver? Why is he a healthy scratch? I don't think anybody has an interest in having that discussion again this year. Like, to me, it's got to be almost like an all or nothing. Like, he's either got to be a guy you rely on and can play, or he's just not on the team. I don't think there's any middling it anymore, because that becomes a to me, that becomes a discussion. In practice, I think you could do it, right? So yeah, they could do it. I just don't think anybody has the appetite to be sitting here answering questions after games about why Keon Coleman isn't on the field as much anymore.
Right. So yeah, that sounds like to me then, if you connect the two thoughts, the one I had and the one you just responded with, then they have to make it so that he beats out someone really credible. And if he does that, more power to him. You know, that's sports, right? But I just hope that there's just got to be upgrades. You know, I saw one clip from Brady. I don't know if this was from his news conference or a separate one-on-one. About, like, you know, he gets asked, he's sort of, I'm getting asked about receivers so much. I don't think the guy's performed so badly that I should be asked as often as I am. And I mean, I don't know. I don't want any steps. I want the everything eats gear to be lit up in a bonfire. Sal, like they need to find their way to, you know, guys that can be counted on, dependable contributors. And Coleman, to me, if he can work his way back to being that, great. I just cannot have it given to him, is all.
I agree, but I do think that Brandon Beane struck the right note while still doing what I said, which is trying to keep his value up and all that. Hey, he's got to have as good like an off season like he had last year. You know, it's funny, that quote came out and people were like, he didn't have a really good off season last year in training camp. He wasn't that good. Like, he was fine in training camp. But I agree with Brandon Beane. Like, I remember last year you asked me and I said everything he's doing is intentional.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's right. Like, he was last year. In the offseason last year, I thought Keon Coleman was doing everything right. And Brandon Beane said, it's like, yeah, phase 1, phase 2, like, he was doing everything right. That's the offseason. When fans hear the offseason, they might think just the preseason games. That's not what it is. It looked to me like Keon Coleman was on track. But here come the maturity issues. Here comes the tardiness. And I thought he struck the right note yesterday, which is, look, you can't let that get in the way of being productive on the field. And that's the challenge to Keon Coleman, is what it is. I just don't know, Bulldog. Even if, let's just play this out. Even if Keon Coleman does everything right between now and week 1, are they still super comfortable that that's not going to happen again throughout the season? Like that, I think they just have to really, really be comfortable with that decision.
You know, I'm talking and explaining how I feel about it. And I feel like I ran away from the key element of what you said, that the way Beane's talking, and really it was Brady with the big comment you already alluded to, right? The best thing that's ever happened to Keon Coleman is me becoming his head coach. You still think they could just drop that and walk away from it? That maybe all of this is just an exercise in trying to get a 5th instead of a 7th?
I do. I think it's very still real that this team moves on from Keon Coleman this offseason. They do not have a lot of draft picks. They have less than normal 1 through 5. I have to go look at the numbers again. I think they need to replenish that. It's a need position. You say it all the time. You're right. Why create a hole? I don't know if they think it's creating a hole. They might look at it as addition by subtraction, given everything that happened last year. And maybe they can use him to package to get something else. Hey, new scene, new environment for him, for a team that might want that. Look, is it possible he's on the team? Sure. That's why I said earlier, 50-50 for me. I can see him on the team. But I think it's absolutely still very real that they move off him this offseason.
I don't have the draft pick rundown in front of me, but I think what I remember is they don't have a 6th, but they have 2 7s.
That's right, I think.
In the draft. And I think they might have the rest of it 1 through 5, if I recall correctly. Excuse me. Sal Capacio on the Western Hotline with us here for just a couple of more minutes, live from Indianapolis, NFL Scouting Combine. So, you know, thinking about this process, the pre-draft process and the combine where you're at, have you thought, Sal, how different this year is from, say, last year or the year they drafted Kyer Elam. I'm leaning on 2 years where they had an obvious glaring opening at corner, right? That was the case at this time last year, and it was the case a few years ago when they drafted both Elam and then, thankfully, Christian Benford in the 6th round. And Benford, of course, has turned into a fantastic player, second contract, and everything that comes with that. This year, I said a couple hours ago, I think you could convince me that edge, safety, receiver, even linebacker is the biggest glaring need this team has. Like that's 4 positions, and there might be even more. I mean, if you want to replenish the offensive line because you're fearing you might lose both McGovern and Edwards, like interior offensive line maybe gets on the list. That's a lot for a team that's in such a Super Bowl contention window, I feel like.
Yeah, it does kind of paint a picture of where the roster is compared to years past, first of all, right? We know that. This isn't the same roster. They have more holes, more positions where things haven't worked out maybe, and they have to kind of replenish that. We also know, though, that things change between now and the draft because there is free agency. So that will take care of some of this. It is different in football as it is in basketball or hockey, and I know hockey has a minor league system, but basketball is kind of the sport for this, where basketball has the draft, then they have free agency. Football has free agency, then they have the draft. So I remember 2020, receiver. Then they trade for Stephon Diggs. You're like, oh, they don't need a receiver anymore. I expect something to come out of this particular free agency to kind of, much lessen, obviously, some of these positions, at least one, if not more. And if I think now about, like, the most likely, I'd like to say wide receiver because I just think that they're banking on a rookie then, and do they really want to do that where Josh Allen is and knowing where the receiving core has been? But I'll also point to something Brandon Beane said yesterday, because you brought it up, linebacker. Brandon Beane was specifically asked yesterday, would you rather find a linebacker, or do you think it's better to find one in the draft or in free agency? Now, he's not going to commit either way. He's not going to give you his plan.
Right.
He even said there's ways to attack it. But something he did say was about being smart and being a player that can, understand what's going on in the defense. And then I talked to John Ledyard today, and Ledyard said, I think one of the things the Bills really need is someone who's going to understand very quickly what Jim Leonhard wants. That tells me free agency might be the way to attack linebacker. And then maybe you address the other position in the draft. Doesn't have to be, but I think we're going to get something from those positions that you talked about. Heck, could be safety. P.J. Locke played for Leonhard in Denver. He intercepted Josh in both playoff games, by the way, the last 2 years. Those are guys I think that might be able to. Leo Chanel, everybody's talked about. He played for Leonhard at Wisconsin. I could see those kinds of guys on that side of the ball being attacked in free agency.
Sorry, I'm sort of laughing. Everybody on Denver intercepted Josh in the playoffs this year. It's like, hello, I'm here all week. No, I mean, come on. It was a line. It was there. I just, all right, I regret it already. All right, well, are you, with what I just said in mind about the positions that you could argue are the most important, is that impacting how, you said you're not running around to a lot of these interviews, but how much does that impact how you're handling this experience, being at the combine? Like the players, are you paying more special attention to who's talking, who the Bills are talking to, or do you always, keep the same sort of attention span on that?
No, not who they're talking to, because we really don't know unless it comes out, right? Like, or people shout out, "Have you?"
Or a player says it when he's talking to the media.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, Bulldog, even going back years, I kind of think, dude, they meet with 45 guys. I mean, I could ask 100 guys. I'm going to get 45 of them telling them they met with the Bills, right? I mean, so what does it matter? So I don't really think about it from that perspective as much. So what they're saying, the guys at the podium, not as much. But what I find myself thinking about, because I don't know this now, is do the Bills have certain types of players, body types, things like that? And I'm watching them, these guys, and he's got length, but does that matter as much in the defense? We talked yesterday about the Javon Solomon comment, right? That was really interesting. And I'm like, years past, I'd be like, oh, dude, like, look at this guy's length. Greg Rousseau, his arm length and whatever, he gets drafted by the Bills, but I don't know, like, what types they're looking for. So I'm seeing these guys up at the podium and thinking, like, I don't know, is that what they're thinking about for the Buffalo Bills? Now, as far as, like, where they're going with pick 26, that's something that I think I'll find out more about as we go through the free agency process into the owners' meetings. I get a little bit more on that kind of thing and like what they're thinking about.
And what is the timing of the owner? Are you like off again and then to the owners' meetings when we talk to you again? Like what happens after this?
No, that's not going to be until the end of March. So another month from now.
No rush.
So
all right.
I'll leave here tomorrow. I'll be back on Friday. I do have something going on next week, so I won't be on for a couple of days. And then it's free agency, and I'll be all over that and talking about that and on with you guys and things like that. And at the very end of March is the owners' meetings. That'll be out in Phoenix. So I'll be 3 hours behind you when we talk. I'll be at noon and 1 o'clock or something joining you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, gotcha. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot for fitting us in again on a busy day. Enjoy, enjoy some carpaccio or some shrimp or whatever you're going to enjoy on your last night in Indy. And
do they have shrimp carpaccio?
Shrimp carpaccio. Thinly sliced, wafer thin slices of shrimp. Oh, I'm going to throw up in my mouth.
I would tell you what the challenge is tonight. I'm going to eat tonight. I think Josh Reed and Matt Perino are going to meet out for a bite to eat tonight. We've been over there today, and but I want to make sure though, wherever I go, I won't be able to, I think, there, but I'll be able to leave and go somewhere to watch the Sabres game. So I don't know how many people in Indianapolis tonight are going somewhere to make sure they watch the Sabres-Devils game, but I will be one of them.
I was a person who called restaurants in Houston, Texas, on the road at the Super Bowl with Mike and Paul Hamilton to find out, do you have I don't think I asked specifically for the Sabre game, but just, do you have the NHL Center Ice package? And this shouldn't surprise you. There were places I called that said, what? And places I called that said, no, we don't. And finally a place I called that said, yes, we do. Is there a game you're going to be looking for? And I said, yes. My friends and I would really like to watch the Buffalo Sabres. I don't know who the hell they were playing, the Atlanta Thrashers. I don't know. And we went to a place, and there it was. So good luck with that, I guess.
There are a few really big sports bars here, so I'm sure I'll be all right at the end of the night.
All right, Sal. Safe travels back, and we'll catch up soon.
Okay, thanks a lot.
That's our dude Sal Capacio on the Wester Hotline, live from Indianapolis. His appearances are always brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? Take a time out and pour over some of what Sal and I talked about as it pertains to like priorities for the 2026 NFL Draft. We'll get into that as we continue. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is off today. This is WGR.
It is over. The Buffalo Sabres are back in action tonight. They are at New Jersey. Puck drop at 7 and pregame coming up in just about a half hour at 6. Both, of course, going to be right here on WGR. And some good news for the Sabres heading into tonight. Tage Thompson will be in the lineup after being in Washington, D.C. yesterday, celebrating Team USA's gold medal win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen gets the start in net, and Josh Norris back in the lineup. He's been out since mid-January, but not all good news. Zach Benson and Jordan Greenway have been placed on IR. While for the Devils, Jack Hughes also expected in tonight's lineup. He was, of course, part of the team that did win the gold medal, Hughes with the game-winning goal. Other notable action going on in the NHL, also at 7, Capitals play host to Philadelphia. 7:30 sees Toronto down in Florida versus Tampa. Austin Matthews expected to be in the lineup for Toronto. And at 10:30, the Ducks, they host the Edmonton Oilers. While in the NFL, Bears linebacker Tremaine Edmunds has reportedly been given permission to seek a trade, and the Titans are releasing center Lloyd Cushenberry. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones. I'm Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Back in the day, if a guy transferred one time, you kind of asked what happened. Did you get run out of this school or whatever? Well, now we interviewed a player last night, and I was like, why'd you stay here 4 years? Like, what happened? You do ask those questions, and sometimes you ask them about, did you leave just because of the money? Did you leave for other reasons? You kind of just want to know. At the same time, our scouts, one of their job is talking to individuals at each program and trying to put together that puzzle of who this person is, how they tick. Are they simply motivated just for money, or is the money a side benefit to they really still playing the game for the love of the game?
That is Bills general manager Brandon Beane from Indianapolis, site of the NFL Scouting Combine, a yearly opportunity for lots of NFL personnel and, more importantly, media to go eat steaks the size of their heads. I think that pretty much sums it up. No, obviously. Being talking about just part of their process here. Really liked, and I think just one of these situations where saying how interesting and how much I'm looking forward to the conversation about all the holes the Bills may have and how their first-round pick or just the draft in general could, you could. I said it this way earlier. You could convince me any one of the following should be the priority for their first-round pick. Receiver, of course. I work at WGR, but it's real. I'm not just saying it for effect. They need to me 2 starting caliber receivers. One, a bona fide experienced guy, and then I think a draft pick just to offset whatever Josh Palmer may or may not be for you. So receivers obviously an answer depending on what free agency or the trade market brings. So receiver. On defense, edge is at the top of the list. Safety's not far behind, and I think linebacker could be a sneaky spot. I did like talking about this with Sal last segment, and he mentioned linebacker in free agency and the names of a couple of players. Chanel is one who was with Jim Leonard at Wisconsin. I feel like linebacker, I hope anyway, it would be really convenient for the Bills if they could find their way to the player that fills the need. I mean, every team is trying to thread this needle, but I feel like linebacker is a spot where you can do this, where you can find a guy that fits your scheme and not have to pay him like the kind of contract that Tremaine Edmunds got when he went to Chicago. By the way, Tremaine Edmunds is been given permission to seek a trade. He's carrying a massive number for this year, like his contract for this year. The Bears can get out from under it. It's not, but if you trade for him, you're taking him on the last year of the free agent deal he signed when he left Buffalo, and I got no interest in that at all. So the idea of a team trading for him to me is pretty hilarious. I don't think that'll happen. I think this is a classic example of a team, the Bears, who are starting to feel the crunch of, oh, hey, we're good now, and we got some guys we got to pay, and how much is our middle linebacker making exactly? What are we doing here? They're starting to live there. Even though they're still, at least a year away from giving Caleb Williams any kind of an extension. That can't happen until after this coming season. But so Edmonds he has been given permission to seek a trade, and I'm here to tell you that it would absolutely blow my freaking mind if somebody traded for him with the contract they would be inheriting. It's much more likely to me that that's a player that in the end the Bears end up going, no, we're good. And maybe that's a player you could sign on a more modest contract. But I feel like that is a position you should be able to find. Look, you want to be the best there that you can be, you're going to have to pay for that. But if you want to, the kind of the way the Bills have approached some of their offensive line moves over the years here, they haven't really. Morse was a big deal. He was the highest paid center at the time he signed that contract. But other guys, McGovern, Edwards, were more modest, middle tier, mid-tier, middle class free agent signings. I think linebacker should be a spot you can find guys that you don't have to pay $10 million a year to. I would hope anyway. So I think linebacker should get addressed that way. I do think my betting is still on receiver getting addressed in some substantive way before we get to the draft. I just do not think, with the way last year went, with the spectacle that surrounded the position, largely because of the performance of the general manager, talking about it the way he did when he made his appearance after the draft with our guys in the morning. I mean, it just never really stopped being a focal point. And he did, as much as we talk about it, it was still just a little Buffalo cottage industry. Bean made it a football story around the country by doing what he did. So he drew attention to it, and receiver ended up being a flaw. And I just cannot believe that Bean, the way that he's wired, isn't going to move heaven and earth to try to get something big done, not waiting until the draft. We just talked all around Keon Coleman again with Sal, and it seems like the way Sal's reading it, and he's around all of these people more, and I feel like they're not in a position they shouldn't be, and I don't think they are really counting on Coleman. And so, can you afford at that position to wait to see how the draft comes to you when you're picking 26th? I mean, I just don't think they can. They don't have enough quality guys there. And there's only so far you're going to get trying out the Marquez Valdez Scantlings and Chase Claypools of the world, and Elijah Moore. They're going to have to do something. And I still think that will be a trade. Whether that's at the high end, and that's big money, A.J. Brown, or it's a big asset, but not a big contract like Brian Thomas Jr. I just think something is going to happen there. I do not think that Bean is going to go into another season or another draft season even picking at the near the bottom of the first round, thinking they're going to come out of there with someone who can make a difference for them. They tried that 2 years ago with Coleman, and it did not hit. And I mean, it did not hit at all. The year before that, they tried with Kincaid, a pass catcher, in the first round. And Kincaid has had, good results when he plays. When he's available, he's excellent. But he is not available enough. So their passing game just needs an influx. And I cannot imagine that they just settle for a $10 or $12 million player like they did with Josh Palmer, or the year before that, Curtis Samuel was a little more modest than that, but around the same, given inflation year over year. I feel like those are basically the same signing. And neither has given you anything yet. And Palmer is in a different bucket than Coleman because, there's no questions about his professionalism and being a good teammate and being trusted. It's, being trusted to be on the field is another trust. And I'd have a hard time if I'm the Bills thinking, well, it was just bad injury luck. I mean, anyone can get hurt. Okay, you still have to do. I'm not saying Palmer's not on your team. I'm not even saying he's not in the formation on the opening play of the season. But there's going to be a different guy with him and Shakir in the top three. And I predict that player is acquired before the draft. I just do not see them waiting until the draft. I think they will target someone. I think, Bean had these irons in the fire during the season, like it seems anyway. Word got out that he was so close to making this trade or that trade and didn't pull him in. Somehow someone with the Bills thinks that makes him look good. I don't know, blows my mind because I don't give him any credit for trying. It's not with any team, but especially a team in this window, in a Super Bowl window. Oh, I almost got a good player. Great. Thanks for coming. I just don't think he'll leave it. I think he will absolutely do something before we get to the draft. So I am very, very much, I'm counting on that. I think it's called for, and I'm at a point where I would say I would be surprised if that's not a priority in the next couple of weeks here as we get into the legal tampering period and eventually free agency. I think it's almost so obvious it sounds ridiculous to be talking about it for as long as I have been. But, we'll be talking about it a lot because it's not ironclad and they do have these other needs. So, we'll see how they handle all of that. 716-803-0550 is the phone number. If you've got a thought before we get to Sabres pregame, we can squeeze you in here. Paul Hamilton will join me at the top of the hour, and then we'll get to Tage Thompson's comments as he made it in time to New Jersey for the morning skate. He's expected to be in the lineup. We'll also hear from head coach Lindy Ruff as well as Captain Rasmus Dahlin. That's all coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. With me, I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is out sick today. This is WGR. Rolling along here on a Wednesday. We have overcome a lot today. Zach Jones, not to lay him out, but I'm gonna, did not play the Wednesday Hump Day Open at 3 o'clock. A jarring mistake, and really has a huge impact on our audience. People literally do not know what day it is anymore. If they don't hear the I thought it was Wednesday. Zach even admitted that he thought it was Thursday when he played
so bad.
Then to compound the mistake, to try to make up for the mistake, in the 4 o'clock hour, he played it, which also is confusing because people are then not going to know what time it is. They're going to know what day it is, but not what time.
I stand by that one, though. I feel really good about that.
It was a makeup call.
It was a makeup call, but now some people will be like, oh, it's going to be like later on. It's like, no, but soon. Keep that in your back pocket.
One Twitter, the person on Twitter that replied to me, did they tag you? Did you see?
They did, yes.
The memory, does that sound familiar to you?
Absolutely rings a bell. That absolutely rings a bell. It was just me and you, and I didn't totally know the structure yet of the show,
right.
and so I played a Friday Open on like a Thursday or something. I think I said, all right, we're just starting out new with Zach. I got to pull the show over already. We're just starting. You don't do that. Right. Some people remember the weirdest things. Anyway, we overcame that. We had some phone issues with Trapasso. That was tough. We managed to get through that, and we're only a couple of minutes away from Sabre pregame. So I feel like we've made it. And then Paul's going to screw it up.
Paul is very likely to set fire to things. Yeah. Although he's more inclined to do that during like the regular show. Not so much. The pregame show, I think he respects the structure.
He's buttoned it up. It's right to the top of the shirt.
Pregame show, he's not going to fool around. What's great is that talking in here, and not that, there were a good amount of calls early in the show, and we've had Sal on, and Zach's been chipping in, but I feel like I'm. Can you hear it? I feel like I'm. It's starting to go. But Sal and I were like dueling. It felt like to me for a little bit there, because Sal is, anybody who does this for a living. There are times when it comes and goes. And mine right now, I'm talking about my voice, feels like it's going somewhere. It's not.
Sal out to dinner tonight on the menu, chamomile tea for one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the same.
Yeah. The weather's perfect for it there.
That is true. I don't really know where we keep the tea in our house.
Ooh.
I don't know if anybody's going to be home when I get home.
And it's a text you kind of might get a little embarrassed by. Like, I know I've lived in the house for 20
where's
plus
the
years,
tea?
but yeah, where's the tea?
Right next to the coffee. Oh, that makes sense.
It's better than the follow-up of where's the coffee. If that's your response,
believe me,
that's tough.
I would not get rolling in the morning if I didn't know where the coffee was. I still do need. I don't need as much as I used to, but I still do need the jump start. All right. We'll hit a timeout. Paul Hamilton leads off Sabres pregame right after this on WGR.